Hi guys, thanks for joining the class again. This is the 8th class and I will talk about the database and how we mirror our database table into the Java code. First of all, we have to remember that earlier we have created a database table and we put one record into the database table which looks like this, right? So, but why do I see that? It is because my database is started. So if your database is not started, even if you go to the PG admin, you will not see anything because the condition to be able to see here anything is to start the database. How can you check if the database is started or not? If you type in here services, I am using Windows 10. And in Windows 10, when you click on services, you will see a list like this. And this operating system will show you what services are running and what services are not running. So I already highlighted the PostgreSQL service, and you see at the moment it's not running. Actually, it's running because I already started. So if I click on action and refresh, then you see that it's running. And since this is running, that's why I am able to see the schemas and the database table. But if not, it will not show anything. So let's see how to stop this service. So you have two options. So either you right click here on the service and you click on stop. It's grayed out for me because I am not with my administrative rights in it right now, so I need that. But the other way is, so if I can't use the stop button, I go to the command line, the DOS command line. And in the DOS command line, basically what I can do is that I will write in net and basically I will write stop and use the service name, which is PostgreSQL-x64-10. So let me type this in, PostgreSQL -x64-10, right? And once I click on it, you see the service is stopping. So that means if I click on the action and refresh, I will not see the running anymore because I have stopped it. So if I get back to the PG admin, refresh that, and reload it, and I am trying to access the database again, I will not be able to because the server is not running. So I click on course, it requires my password, which I pass in, and I click OK, but unfortunately I will get an error message that it's not running, you see? Could not connect to server. So what needs to be done is basically come back here, and instead of stop, I will write start, right? With that, I'm starting the database server again, and now this time I will be able to access the database. So let's refresh that and reload. And then once I refresh it and reload it, I click on the servers again and then course, and it requires my password again, so I'll type it in and then click OK. And then as you see now I have full access and I can see the tables and everything. So that's how you can start and stop the database server, and you will have access to that. All right. Now, so what's the next step? So the next step is basically I will want to know what is here in my database, so view all rows, right? And then as we discussed before, I have one record in the database, which is here. Okay, so that's my record here in the database. And I want to mirror the exact database table in my Java code. So if I come back here, and remember last time we created the demo application.java, I need to create another folder. I called it models. The way you can do that here under the example, you right click and you click new and then folder, and here you put the name. I already did, so it was models, and then click finish, and the models folder had been created. Next step, you right click on that and you click on new again, and you click file, and here you put user.java and then finish again, and then basically the Java file is here. Okay, what is models? So models will include an entity Java file. And why do we need an entity? If we click on this, you can see the entity is between the repository and the database, right? Because when the repository is communicating with the database, it will do it through an entity. And so that is very important, that the database table is mirrored into the entity in the Java code. Let's do it now. So here's the user. I already filled this up before the class so that I don't waste any time with typing in stuffs. I would rather explain what's going on here. So since this is in the com and the example and in the models folders, I'll give this name to the package. So that's gonna be the package name. And I have to import the Javax persistence API so that I can use these type of annotations here. So the way how you do that is you start typing in import and then Javax and then click the dot, and then basically it will tell me that I can choose the persistence API. It's here, and then I can import that. But probably for you will not find this in the list. Why is that so? Because here in the configuration file, which is the POM file, you have to put this dependency, right? This is the Javax persistence API dependency, which is a package was written before by other people, but you want to use that. That's why you can import it here, because I put in the dependency. But why don't you see that in the list here? Because when you put it here in the POM file, how do I know that I have to put this one? It's very easy, because when you copy this and you jump into your browser, and you here in the browser you type in javax.persistence dependency, then you will get some links, and clicking the first one, you see that the persistence API is here. That's what you need to copy and put in your POM file. So it's very easy to find. And the next step, when you put in the POM file, you have to jump to the command line and switch the folder. You can switch the folder with the cd command, and you give the path, and then you give this path after the cd command. It depends on where you are, because if let me tell you again what I mean. So if I get back to the root folder, right? I am in C, that's the root one, and I need to come here, right? How can I do that? So I put cd, and here in the Windows Explorer, I'm trying to find where my project is. My project is in the Spring Boot sample, and I'm using the demo, right? Here's the POM file. That's the project I am in here. It's a demo 2, but here's the demo. So now we use the demo, and here's the POM file of the demo. So what I can do is I will copy this path and put right here in the CD. And then you see when I click enter, basically it jumps to that folder. So I am in that folder now. So if I type in dir, I can list the different files which can be found here in this directory. Okay, so what's the next step? So next step is basically I am here, and then you have to type in mvn, so stands for Maven, clean install. So this is a Maven command. Of course, if your computer wants to interpret this and use that, you have to download Maven beforehand. So let's do that, because it's not part of this course to explain how to install Maven, but please install Maven onto your computer beforehand, and then you will be able to use this Maven command. So once you click enter, then this one, which you put here in the dependency section, this will be created in your local Maven repository, because the way how it's used is once you carry out this command, Maven will download this dependency from the Maven central repository, which is on the internet, into your local Maven repository. But where is your Maven local repository? It's actually here in the M2 folder. Let's search for the M2 folder. You can see here's the .m2. That's the local Maven repository. If I click on it, what do I have to find here? I told javax.persistence. So I'm looking for javax here. So do I have a javax? Yes, it's here. And then do I have a persistence? Yes, here. And then javax persistence API. So if I get back here, I called it really javax persistence API version 2.2. So when I get back and I click on javax persistence API 2.2, and here is the jar file I need so that I can use the import, you know. So that the jar file makes me possible that I can use this import here in the user file successfully, right? That's very important. Okay, the next step is I create a mirror from the database table, which was here. So I will mirror this into the Java code. How? I use the entity annotation, which means this will be bound to a database table. The table name is website data. So when you check it, it's really called website data. It should be the same name in the code. So I put here the table name is website data. And I create the class, the Java class, which is a public class. I called it user. And the first one is the ID column. So I would refer to that. This column, we call it ID. And what I give here in the code is actually this will be auto-incremented and unique. Okay, it will be generated automatically, and this will be unique, which means it cannot be the one again, because if there is a next row and the ID is one again, this is not unique anymore. So it must be unique, and it must be always incremented. So it cannot be the same. So that's what we are saying here. And the ID is actually a private variable, which means it can be accessed only from this class, from the user class. And the type of the ID variable is long. It's a Java type. You can check it. So the next column is called name. Is it really name? Let's check it. So if you get back, yes, it's name, address, and email. So I'll call it name. So it's a string type and it's private again. And the next one is the address. And these cannot be null. So that's what I'm stating here, that these columns cannot be null. They must have a value. It's very important. Okay, so the third column is the email column, which is type string again. Okay, so here I created different column names into the Java code, which represent the table name columns. And here I am using a constructor. A constructor is needed just to create, for example, an instance of this class. Later on with a new keyword, I'm using the constructor. It will create a new instance of this class. So this constructor is without any parameters. I'm using here another constructor, this one, but this constructor has 3 parameters, the name, the address, and the email. it is allowed in Java to use more constructors, but the only criteria is that the parameter list cannot be the same. So as you see, here is empty. Here we have 3 different parameters, so they are not the same because that was empty, that's not empty. And what I am saying here is that the this.name refers to this, which is the name variable inside the user class. So the this.name refers to the name variable, which will pick up this name parameter. So when I use the user function, I'm calling it from somewhere with 3 different parameters, which I am passing in. This variable will pick up what I gave here, right? So it will pick up this value. That's why I'm stating this here. The same with the address. The address will pick up this value, and the email will pick up this value once I pass in these variables, these parameters, when I call the function, right? Okay, that was the second constructor. And then you see here the different getter functions, which will return always the value of these variables. So the get ID will return this value, the get name will return this value, the get address this value, and the get email this value. So as you see, here's the get ID, here is the get name, and here is the get address, and here is the get email, right? So this will return those. And then I need also setter functions because I have to set these values later on. So when I say set ID and I will pass in a value later on when I call this function, then this ID will pick up, the one I gave in here, right? And for example, the get name, the set name will set the name variable. These are the so-called setter functions, which we set the different variables we have declared here. Okay, that's it. I think that's what I wanted to explain today. And let's summarize very briefly what we were talking about. So we were talking about how to start and stop the database with these different commands. And we also saw how Maven works. There is a central repository and a local repository, how Maven is downloading the different dependencies. And also we saw how to create the entity Java file, which represents basically the database table and represents the different database columns. Thank you for your attention. So next time we are continuing with the repository and the service, how the repository is using the entity and is communicating with the database, and how the service is using the repository so that we can manipulate the data. Thank you for attention and have a nice day. See you next time. Bye-bye.